What a wonder is a gun. What a versatile invention. First of all, when you've a gun, everybody pays attention. Remove a scoundrel, unite the party, preserve the union, vote the sale of my book, ensure my future, my niche in history, and then the world will see that I am not a man to overlook. Ha ha!
I was wondering how long it was going to take.
How long won't it take?
Before I got on your nerves.
I didn't say you got on my nerves.
The same thing, you said I irritated.
No, you said you irritate me. I didn't say it.
Well, then what did you say?
I can't remember what I said. What's the difference what I
It
said?
doesn't make any difference. I'm just repeating what I thought you said.
Well, don't repeat what you thought I said. Repeat what I said. Not that's irritating. You see? You did say it. I can't believe this whole conversation.
I'm sorry, Oscar. I don't know what's wrong with me.
Don't pout. You want to fight, we'll fight, but don't pout. Fighting I win, pouting you win.
You're right. Everything you say about me is absolutely right.
Don't give in so easy. I'm not always right. Sometimes you're right.
You're right. I do that. I always figure I was wrong.
But this time you are wrong and I'm right.
Leave me alone.
And don't sulk. It's the same as pouting.
I know. I know. Why can't you do one lovely thing right?
Why didn't you throw it?
Oh, I almost did. I get so insane with myself sometimes.
Well, why didn't you throw the cup?
I'm trying to control myself.
Why? What do you mean?
Why?
Why you feel you have to control yourself? You were angry, you felt like throwing a cup, throw a cup.
There's no point to it. I should be angry. I never broke the cup.
How do you know how you feel? You might feel wonderful, Felix. I mean, why do you feel you had to control every thought in your head? Why don't you do something you feel like doing instead of things you think you should be doing? Let loose sometimes, Felix. Relax. Quit writing in the book. Get drunk, get angry. Throw the goddamn cup. Ow, I hurt my heart. You're hopeless.
I don't know.
This is how it starts. By the end of the conversation, he'll be asking for money.
Oh, that's nice. That's the way you introduced me to...
My lover? My lover. Say it. My brother has a lover. And his name is Vincent.
Hey, Vince.
Hi. You would already have known that if you accepted our invitation for Thanksgiving.
Sorry.
And Christmas.
Paul.
And Easter.
If you want money from me, you're going to say, my brother has a lover.
My brother has a lover.
You see? You see, he's going to ask me for money.
Paul, I think he needs your help.
You know what? I am not going to enable him again.
Hold on, Paul.
Paul!
You know what? You want to have this conversation, you go right ahead. I've heard this song and dance.
I'll do it for $7 grand.
Look, the last thing I want to do is sleep with a guy. I just got to figure out if I can even do this.
With enough alcohol and the right drugs, anything's possible.
I'm a degenerate gambler, not sick.
I gotta go.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just thought maybe I could...
I gotta meet some friends. Look, if it'll help you out, you can come along.
I'll take you up on that. You got it?
Yeah.
I want to report a homicide. 2344 Howell Road in Downers Grove. I said that I want to report a homicide. 2344 Howell Road. Get over here now!
This week we're talking about my favorite topic in the theater. Acting! Acting is how I got involved in theater. Those were clips of some theater I've done through college and professional, and then a little bit of film. I don't have a whole lot on tape, but those are just some stuff I've done. But acting is something that has made such a difference in my life as a person and professionally. So we're going to talk about acting this week. We're talking about the history, a little bit of history of acting. We're talking about training of an actor. We don't just get up there and act. You have to be trained. Yeah, there are some movie stars that just get up in front of a camera, but you can tell they suck. Okay. So anyway, we're going to talk about acting. I'm going to quit rambling now. So sit back, take notes on the lecture, and yeah. Enjoy the topic of acting as much as I do.
Acting, and I hope you enjoy this as much as I do. But yes, one of my favorite topics. Here pictured is Judi Dench, Dame Judi Dench, famous English actress from stage, classical theater to modern theater to film acting. She's Oscar nominated. I believe she did win an Oscar. One of our best. But to play a character convincingly, an actor must develop both the outer techniques and inner emotional resources. And this is true whether an actor is performing in a classical play or a modern realistic play. I'm going to move fairly quickly, so if you need to pause it and take notes, please do, or rewind. But let's talk about the performers. Performers are a direct and immediate link to the audience, and there's nothing like being in a theater and watching a live performance on stage. Their ability to connect live with spectators is what sets theater apart from other media like film and television. Film and television, although it is challenging, is nothing compared to what an actor has to prepare for when he or she performs on stage. Acting in everyday life. Well, we do that, right? We imitate people. Susie looked at me and she said, "Did you take my purse, huh?" So you saw the as silly as that was, you hear the change in voice. Well, imitation is mimicking or copying someone else's vocal patterns, their gestures, their facial expressions, posture, etc. We do that, right? She said this about me. He said it this way, right? He acted like this. Ironically, children are especially good at imitation. Here's a picture of two kids, pretending like they're a patient and pretending like they're a doctor, They have so much fun, and that's what acting is all about. It's about having fun. And role-playing is something that kids are great at and that we do in everyday life. And there's two types of role-playing. There's social roles and personal roles. And role-playing social roles is, are general roles that are recognized by society, like father, mother, child, police officer, store clerk, teacher, student, business executive, physician, so on. And personal roles is more or less family or friends, or going from memory. It may be, for instance, that arrogant uncle, that braggart that you may play as a role. And kids are great at it. Kids are so less inhibited, too. We talk about this in acting class. They have freedom. They're not restricted by what society has put on a human being yet. Acting in life versus acting on stage. Well, there's several differences, but here's a sum. So actors on stage are constantly observed and on display. They know that when they're on stage. But at the same time, they have to be truthful. You know a bad actor when one vocally doesn't have, it maybe monotone, or kind of moves stiffly, for instance, or not relaxed. Acting on stage requires an actor to play roles not played in real life. So an actor has to be able to play someone completely different from themselves, for instance. Actors on stage often play multiple characters. A play that comes to mind is the Tectonic Theater production of The Laramie Project. The actors in there, the cast may consist of eight characters in the play, but each character may play anywhere from 10 to 20 different characters and change. Actors on stage are aware that they are part of a theatrical event, right? Characters on stage are not real people, but can be representations of real people. And our experience as an audience, if the acting is good and things are clicking right, we believe that person on stage is that character. But we have to remember, not to really hate someone who's playing a bad character, because they're just acting. Acting in real life versus acting on stage again. So here's an example of it being done in a play. Arthur Miller's famous play, Death of a Salesman. The character of Happy plays the role of the big shot, and he invents exaggerated stories to make himself seem more important than he is. He's trying to impress these girls. Roles on stage are often similar to roles people are called on to play in real life. People summoned to serve as members of a jury is a good example. And here's such a wonderful play. It's from a picture from the Roundabout Theater Company's production of 12 Angry Men by Reginald Rose. And it's a play about deliberations that take place in a jury room. And just a marvelous play. Go see it. There's a great movie, too. Several great versions. Love this play. So stage acting, I'm going to take a historical perspective. There were physical demands of classical acting, and still today, which I'll talk about. Formal movement and stylized gestures. This is before we get into the realistic period, which I'll talk about in a minute. But yes, everything was large because they were playing large audience. If you think of playing a huge Greek theater back in the ancient Greek period of anywhere from 10,000 to 20,000 people, like a baseball stadium, everything had to be large, and things had to be sung vocally. So performing musical components, so it could be projected and heard, and the body and the vocal qualities had to be trained. So acting back then was not intended to replicate real life, and it was accepted by audiences back then. Vocal demands of classical acting is the language was poetry and it required intensive training. The instrument had to be trained. Problems of projection and theater acoustics. I mean, you were playing back then, going, even in the days of the Restoration period, I mean, they were playing for hundreds to 1,000 people, and they had to project, had to go to the back of the house, and they sung it, back then. It wasn't realistic. And performers were often outdoors with large audiences requiring projection. So they really had to pump it out from the diaphragm, still do today, but they had to pump it and then sing it. And remember that it wasn't realism. The vocal quality was very much sung, and the physical was very stylized. So performing in classics today, we still have to project, right? But many actors are called upon to perform in classical works today, and to perform in these works today, still requires great skill, still requires great training, and it's rare to see actors perform unless it's a rare thing that they may be going for the style of something of the past. But realism is very important, even in classical acting. We expect it when we go see a Shakespeare festival, for example. We go see Hamlet. So classical performance today, you often use realistic styles. The acting still needs to be truthful. It still needs to use the language, the verse, and be believable. So let's talk about the development of realistic acting. So realism kind of came from playwrights to begin with, right? Because playwrights write the given circumstances of a play. And realism, such as famous playwright Henrik Ibsen from Norway. You'll want to remember some of these playwrights. Famous for A Doll's House, Hedda Gabler, among many. August Strindberg, who dabbled in other styles, but his Miss Julie is very famous, very naturalistic, had to be performed in a realistic way. And one of my personal favorites, Anton Chekhov from Russia, The Cherry Orchard, The Seagull, so many great plays, Uncle Vanya. He wrote in a realistic style. So realism defined is when it closely resembles what people could identify with and verify from their own experience. Stage acting today. Acting! Brilliant! Pictured here is one of my favorite Saturday Night Live scripts from, I think, the early 90s or something like that, but John Larroquette, John Lovitz, and a wonderful actor, John Lithgow, as a guest star on the show. Larroquette. Why do I keep calling him Larroquette? Lovitz had this character where he was the master thespian, and Thespis was known as the first actor in Greek theater, and so that's where the word thespian comes from, and because it's Thespis. And he would go, "I'm the master thespian," and he would do Budweiser commercials as the master thespian, and he would overact everything, and it was very fun. If you haven't seen it, check it out on YouTube or something. Film and TV acting is what most people are exposed to, right? We grew up, I love films, I love movies, I love TV, and that's what we today first see when we first see actors in most cases. Occasionally, maybe a kid goes to see the theater, early on, but we see so many more performances in movie and theater and television than we see on stage. And it's just a fact. It's such a mass media. And camera, an actor working on the camera may only be a few feet away from the camera itself, but the audience is at much greater distances. Here's pictured, gives you a perspective. So stage acting is more of a challenge than acting in front of a camera. Yes, acting in front of a camera is very challenging and is a different style. But stage acting is more difficult. You have to play to the back of the house, not just to a microphone and a lens. So the acting experience. So what does it mean to be an actor? How do you be an actor? Some of you may have acting experience. You may have done something in high school. You may have done something in community theater, or elementary school, or a church, or even as a little kid. But what does it mean to be an actor? Let's talk about what it takes, right? So we're going to make up a character named Jennifer. And Jennifer has to hear about an audition. So you have to audition to get the part. Well, unless you have an inside, But in most cases, you have to audition to get a part. So Jennifer may see a poster for Macbeth, for instance, and say, oh, I want to play Lady Macbeth. And so I will go audition for Macbeth at this time, right? And then Actors Access is a professional website for professional actors. And agents are on there, and I use Actors Access. My agents use Actors Access. They let me know about auditions on there. There's some other ones as well, but yes, that's another way to find about auditions. Backstage is a magazine that posts auditions in New York City, LA, throughout the country, and now it's a website. Back in the day when I lived in New York City, you had to buy the paper, the Backstage paper on Thursdays to find out what the auditions were. But now it's a website. And then you have talent agents who will call you or contact you through web services such as Actors Access, email you, and let you know about that a casting director wants to see you for a certain role, and etc., etc. So Jennifer must audition. She saw the poster. She got the word out. She heard about it. So she's got to go before the director and the casting director, and she may have to read the scene from the project. Maybe something from the script itself. Do a cold read. Reading cold means that you don't have it memorized, so you have to do the best you can with it. Or she may have to have a prepared monologue, 1 to 5 minutes sometimes, to show that she can act. So she's acting to someone that's not there, to show that she has talent, that she's trained. If she's auditioning for a musical, she may have to prepare 16 or 32 bars of a song, and there will be a pianist, and the pianist will play, and she'll sing the song to show off her voice and so that she can sing. And then Jennifer may be called back to be seen again to read with other actors. And the director may call her in and out, may have her read with different people, to see what she looks like with other people, to see how she performs with other people. So there's several different factors and scenarios in auditioning. So Jennifer has to train to be an actor. You don't just act. It's like learning to play an instrument. So she has to learn to prepare for an audition, for instance, and she has to take acting classes, some way, somehow, get experience, and then she has to audition and be prepared, so she goes in and she's not a nervous wreck. So in this scenario, we're going to say that Jennifer gets the part. But just for your information, from someone who's had many heartbreaks in the business, anyone who wishes to act as a career must learn to deal with disappointment and rejection. That's just the way it is. And that's the way real life is in anything. This can be at professional level, it can be at community level, it can be at college level, or it can be professional level. I mean, you're not always going to get the part. And no matter how bad you want it, it doesn't always happen. Or the part you want. It's just the way it is. And that's the way real life is. You may have that dream job yourself, and you may not get it the first time, but you have to try, and never give up. And that's the persistence an actor must have. And so you'll have that as well when you graduate. So, in this scenario, Jennifer's going to get the role, right? What's she going to do? Well, first of all, she's going to commit herself to several weeks of rehearsal. You know, I've had quick productions where I had only a 2-week rehearsal, which was a nervous wreck, and I've had 7 weeks, or sometimes more, or in between there. But yeah, she's going to make the commitment to be at rehearsal every day or every night. And she will explore her character, and she will interact with other performers, find her character that way, find how other people are working, that she's working with. She's going to have to learn her lines quickly, right? She's got to memorize those lines, right? And she's going to have to learn her blocking. And she will work closely with the director. And the director will help her find her character, help her make suggestions, may do exercises to find emotional depths, for instance. But she will work closely with the director throughout the rehearsal period, through the entire rehearsal period. And she will be challenged when she gets to tech and costume rehearsals. So when she gets to tech rehearsal, you know, there are going to be people going, hey, we need to change that light over there. No, we need a new color over there. And now stop, Jennifer. Could you go back to this line back? Yeah. All right. Back again. And she has to be prepared for that. So she needs to be ready before all that madness happens. And the costume designer might go, I want to change your costume. It's not working. She will have a preview or dress rehearsal before an invited audience sometime. Remember, a preview is before an invited audience. So she'll have to be prepared for that. And then she's got to be prepared for opening night. And she can adjust during a preview if she's lucky enough to get one. But she's got to be completely ready before opening night. The old saying, the show must go on. And I could tell you horror stories, but yeah, she's got to be ready. Got to be. It's this process is intense. An actor doesn't just learn lines and get up on stage or get in front of the camera. But if she wants to be a real actress, let's say, you know, let's say that was even a community theater scenario, but let's say she wants to be a professional. But she's going to have to go, and even if you want to just do it for fun, it doesn't matter. But if you train, you have to go through extensive training. And it's similar. Learning acting is similar to learning to be a musician or an athlete or an artist. You know, a musician, you go to learn the instrument and learn the technique of playing it, the piano or the clarinet or the trumpet or whatever. An athlete, you have to be physically conditioned to you know, jump the high pole or play football or basketball, baseball. You know, or an artist, you know, you can't, you know, you're not going to have a masterpiece your first painting. So training is basically, I always tell my acting class, you know, you're here in this first acting class to fall on your butts. And that's okay, because that's what it's all about. And we learn from our mistakes. So there are acquired skills that must be honed and studies that must be undertaken in preparing to become a performer. And I'll throw this in too. An actor has to be intelligent. An actor has to know as much about the human condition, as much about current events and history, and understand as much as they possibly can to portray a role and to be good. Actors must be proficient in a wide range of techniques and disciplines, because the more versatile you are, the more you're going to get cast. Right? So an actor has to have great physical and vocal skills. They must understand the craft of acting. So they must learn how to portray believable, or how, as I like to say, or as Stanislavski said, which we'll talk about in a minute, truthful characters. And this requires not only a careful analysis of the script that the playwright or the writer has written and the character, but a number of techniques which were first developed by the Russian director Konstantin Stanislavski, who lived in 1863 to 1938, and then he had successors. I'm going to move on and talk about Stanislavski, the founder of realistic acting. So, Stanislavski was co-founder of the Moscow Art Theater in Russia, and he was the director of many of Anton Chekhov's most famous plays. Remember Anton Chekhov he wrote the Seagull, the Cherry Orchard, because it had a style of realism. Stanislavski himself was also an actor. He was a director, but he developed a system for actors to create believable, truthful characters on stage. Truth. There's that word, truth in acting. If you can use truth when you talk about acting and some of your critiques on the plays that you're going to watch, I'll be most impressed. The actor was truthful, the actor wasn't truthful, that kind of thing, and why. But let's move on. These are just famous quotes. I'm going to go through them. You don't have to remember them, but they're just some of my favorite quotes that from my hero, Stanislavski. I trained from Stanislavski, and not from him because he was dead, but from his theories directly because I'm into the source itself. All of our acts, even the simplest, which are so familiar to us in everyday life, become strained when we appear before the footlights. Before the footlights means on the stage. But yeah, you may have seen actors in the past on stage who may vocally be monotoned or be real stiff or not relaxed, not truthful. And one of my favorite quotes is, "There is only one way, as I have already told you, ceaselessly to fulfill the basic goal of our art that consists in the creation of life, of the human spirit of a role in a play, and in giving that life physical embodiment in an aesthetic, theatrical form." I think that pretty much says it all. You don't have to remember that. I'm just preaching my Stanislavski. I love him. So the actor must first of all believe in everything that takes place on stage, and most of all, he must believe what he himself or herself is doing. And one can only believe in the truth. It's another great one. Stanislavski studied how people acted in everyday life and how they communicated feelings and emotions. He was obsessed by it. And then he found ways to accomplish the same things on stage. He studied the human condition, he studied people, he wrote it down, and he came up with theories, and they work, and they still work today in anything we see. And you can thank Konstantin Stanislavski for great acting in film, TV, stage, yeah. And I could go on and on, but I'm not. Stanislavski's observations resulted in a series of exercises and techniques for the actor, which had the following broad aims. And this was his goal, right? So he wanted to make the outward behavior of the performer, the gestures of the performer, the voice of the performer, the rhythm of the movements, they needed to be natural, convincing, they needed to be real, they needed to be truthful. To have the actor or actress convey goals and objectives, which are the inner needs of the character. So everybody wants something. Every character wants to gain something. And even if all the visible manifestations of a character are mastered, a performance will appear superficial and mechanical without a deep sense of conviction and belief. So a character has to have a super objective and many objectives in scenes. Talk about that in a minute. To make the life of the characters on stage not only dynamic, but continuous. You know, some performers tend to emphasize the high parts of a part, right? You know, this is my moment, right? But the life of a character in real life never stops. So in real life, people do not stop living. So there's actors that have those high parts and then maybe look out into the audience like they're bored. That's not good acting. Or they're not listening to other characters on stage. That's not good acting. And so that's about ensemble play. So he believed in developing a strong sense of ensemble playing with other performers in a scene. And back then, during this period before the turn of the 19th century, there were so many stars of the stage, and it was all about that star, and it wasn't about the other actors and characters on stage. And that's not what it's all about. That's not real life. It's sharing with your fellow actors on stage. And they are just as important, even though you may have the large role of the play. The small parts are just as important as your part, because that's what tells the story. All right, so the Stanislavski system. So different things here. Let's start with relaxation, right? Tension is a bad thing for an actor. It has negative effects vocally and physically. And Stanislavski realized that. So anything for an actor to do to relax before they go on stage, to get loose that tension, because tension is a restrictor. And you'll see that on a test. I think it's a trick question. But yeah, no matter, even if the part is intense, the actor can't appear tense. It can't be tightened. It can't be restricted, Concentration and observation, which is also known as circle of attention. So performers will stop worrying about audience. They lose their self-consciousness. They're so into the part, they will forget sometimes that the audience is there. They're in the world. They believe it. Importance of specifics. You cannot act in general. There's no general. You must act. You must play the part with specifics from the given circumstances that the playwright's given you. The world the playwright's given you. You can't play, for instance, an emotion. You have to play an action. And an action has to be specific. And an action is always a verb. I want this. Inner truth. Inner truth is often found by the magic if, is what Stanislavski referred to it as, and this is the key to unlocking the actor's imagination. So, what if I were this person? What if I were really this person? What if I were a slave in 1864? What if I were that person? How would I feel? What would I need? Etc. That sparks the actor's imagination. It's inner truth. Action on stage. You must ask 3 questions to play an action on stage. What? Why? How? There's several others. This is just in the text, but this is what drives the psychological actions, the psychophysical actions, I should say. What? What am I doing? Why am I doing it? How am I going to do it? How am I going to get what I want? Through line of a role. What's the character's super objective? Super objective is what the character wants in the entire play. For instance, simply you could say that Hamlet wants revenge. I'm Hamlet, I want revenge. And that's my super objective. Whether I get it or not, I want it. And then there's going to be several objectives in the through line of the play, several obstacles to get revenge, right? Ensemble playing, there's that beautiful word ensemble again. Performers, they don't act alone. They have to share the stage with everyone with them. Everyone is just as important. Every part is just as important as any other. Psychophysical action. So, playing an action, a verb, I want to kill you, I want to love you, an action is key to the psychological. And that's the way things are in real life. These are just some. There are several more, but it's just in the text. I'd really like you to remember relaxation, concentration, observation, specifics, inner truth, and what, why, how. And probably ensemble playing. But these were ideas that he developed, and now they've been adapted to considerable controversy. There's been several teachers that taught his method, and they fought about the method. for several reasons. Could be translation, or because he was Russian and things were translated differently. It's gotten a little bit better today, but I'll talk about that next, because his theories are still being taught today. One of his theories was emotional recall, or also called emotional memory. And whether to use emotional memory or not, that is the question. So he spoke of, Stanislavski spoke of emotional memory, and that's where you recall real life experiences from your own past. So let's say I have to cry in this scene, and I'm not finding the tears, so I'll use my imagination and look back and remember when I was a child, and remember when my dog died and how I felt. It's a technique, and it can be accomplished. Lee Strasberg, who developed the school of the Actors Studio, was obsessed with this part of Stanislavski's system, the emotional memory, he called it emotional recall. So it was very intense training, but that's what he focused on. It's about you and your life and how you put it into the character, basically, in a nutshell. Uta Hagen, she believed in emotional recall or emotional memory, but she believed that emotional memory should be used to springboard oneself into the action of the play. So you would use it and boom, go into the character to help you bounce into the emotion, and once you would be where the character was. In a nutshell. Famous acting teacher. Stella Adler, one of my favorites. She believed in the text as being the instrument of the action. She believed that the imagination would help you find the emotion. Your imagination is the key. That you didn't always have to go into your own personal life, you know. But many famous acting teachers felt Strasberg neglected the importance of physical action. And Adler and Strasberg used to fight, you know, in public about Stanislavski's theory on emotional recall. But bottom line, no matter the technique, and see, all these, and these are just a few. It goes on. You could talk about so many more. These are just some famous ones. But an actor must decide which technique is right for him or her. Right? What works best for them. There's no right or wrong. Performers today in their training, they must have body and voice training. Because, you know, especially on stage, the physical, the vocal, they must learn to articulate and project to the back of the house. And it has to still be truthful. They have to achieve a balance between being heard and being credible. Perform exercises that develop the instruments of the body and voice. The more physically in shape you are, the better off you are as an actor. And balance, physicality. You know, here pictured is a balance exercise. I've done, not like her, because I'm not that flexible, but that kind of training prepares you physically and psychologically as well when you're on stage. Centering is when finding your own center, you know, what keeps you more balanced on stage, that kind of thing. Performers training today continued. Training techniques from other disciplines is still used. Asian theater is a wonderful way to train physically, vocally. Asian theater combines elements of ballet, pantomime, sign language, you know, like Noah, Kabuki theater. Asian theater also, artists will develop their craft. And I've known several that have trained in Tai Chi or other martial arts. It's just a psychologically and physically, breath-wise, it's a great way of training. Circus training is still used today. Juggling can help you with your concentration, that kind of thing. And acrobatics keep the body limber, and it also teaches teamwork. These are just a couple examples. And then you have training for special forms of theater. Musicals, you know, you have to be able to sing to be in a musical, unless you don't have a part that sings. But you have to train the voice to sing. Anybody who's ever taken voice classes or voice training. And you have to be, musical theater is kind of different from opera. And you have to be able, if it requires dancing, you have to be able to dance, obviously. You can't do a chorus line. There's no character that doesn't dance. Well, there's one, but there's no character that doesn't dance in the chorus line in most of them, you know. So, and the better you are, the more work you're going to get. And coordination, you have to be coordinated to be in a musical. I love musicals, always have. Pantomime is you have to be trained for. It's very physical, you know. And it has to have its own style. And, of course, speaking of style, you've got avant-garde and experimental theater, which can also be very exhausting at times. You have to be physically apt for that and prepared for that type of theater. And there's what's called synthesis and integration. And bottom line, what this is, we were talking about with all the demands of an actor in the training, it's going to help create the instrument and help the actor be more flexible, more resourceful, more disciplined, more psychologically ready for a role. But after all the synthesis and integrating into the part, the training has to go away. The actor just has to live the character. That's where, I guess, the muse takes over, so to speak. Actors employ many techniques and skills when studying to play a role. However, the final product must be an integration of the training, a synthesis of the outer physical aspects and the inner emotional ones. So, boom, bottom line, training's got to go away and just be the part, be the role. Like Ian McKellen pictured here. He's so awesome. He's a master. And why are we talking about acting? Not just because I love it so much, but because we study the techniques and problems of acting so that we can be able to understand and judge the performances that we see. So after this lecture, you guys talk about acting in your reviews. You have several things to go off of to support your opinions on someone's acting, whether you feel it's strong or weak. As a result of the roles they play and the personal charisma they often possess, actors have always held a fascination for us audiences. And aren't we really? I mean, don't we go to the theater to see actors and to see everything, of course. But that's our main focus, because those are the people telling us the story in a truthful way, hopefully. And acting too helps you. The process can help you to reach your own personal goals, whether they're in show business or outside of show business. It's true. You set for yourself, and that's what an actor must do. So just really briefly, I've talked about these people, but some modern approaches to realistic acting. You know, we talked about Uta Hagen, and here's a little bit about her. She was an actress and drama teacher. The name of her studio was HB Studio. It's still there in New York City and in LA, I believe. But she wrote 2 great books, Respect for Acting and A Challenge for the Actor, and anybody who's interested in acting, I recommend reading these books. They're on Amazon. And there she is. She was a genius. And all these people have taken the techniques of Stanislavski. Stella Adler was an acclaimed actress and acting teacher. She's one of my favorites. She founded the Stella Adler School in New York City, and she had one in LA. She believed in the imagination and what the imagination how it can work for you as an actor. She was tough. All these people were tough. Lee Strasberg, who believed in method acting. The Actors Studio in New York and LA is still going strong. It's gotten even larger. And yeah, method acting, taking something in your real life and using it on stage. I think it works best for film, in my opinion. Robert Cohen, let's move on to what can be done, what can be learned in the academic field. I teach acting here, and my colleague teaches other courses in acting. Robert Cohen is a famous American University professor. He was a director, playwright, critic, and he's written many books about theater itself and anthologies, many plays. He's been a professor of drama at the University of California, Irvine since 1965, and I think he's still going strong. But he's pretty famous. So that's the end of acting. I hope you've learned about the process. I could go on forever and ever about it, but I'm not. That's all you need to know. Here's me getting ready to wallop my son's head in a play called The Boys Next Door. I played a very bad father. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the lecture. Thank you. Bye-bye.